Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Gail Craft here on the Empowering Process podcast. And I have with me someone that you absolutely need to meet. This is Samantha Kaylor, Kaylor. And she's the founder of Everly Sacred, which we will talk about a little bit later. But Samantha is joining us today to talk about specific experiences in her life that she struggled with. And as a result of choices and feeling kind of like no choice, a domino effect occurred for her, which brought her to her knees. And, I know what it's like more than once to be brought to my knees. And I will tell you, the last time I was, as painful as it was, I thought I was going to die. It was the point in my life where I stepped into owning my power and owning who I am. So I'm looking forward to sharing your story, Samantha. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Gail, for the wonderful introduction.
So tell us a little bit. I mean, that is a powerful statement that you made about being brought to your knees. And I would imagine many people feel that way, and feel lost in the middle of that turmoil. So what were some of the things that led up to that experience, and what was it that brought you to that point?
Yeah, so when it came to literally the turning point and being brought to my knees that something had to give was being in corporate to the point that I was living a life that looked great from the outside and feeling absolutely empty and like a shell of a person on the inside. um, had everything when it comes to relationship, a house, everything materialistic that somebody would appreciate. And at the same point, there was hardly any love or support and um, really growth in the relationship. And
Let me just interject for 1 second.
mm,
I
yeah,
say that um, you made a comment that from the outside looks like I have everything. We have
mm,
been raised, especially in the US of A, with a determinate definition of what success looks like. And it's all materialistic. None of it has to do with being centered, being one with self, being sure of your choices, being confident, right? You can be absolutely broke, which, if you have all those other things, you're not going to be absolutely broke, but you could be absolutely broke and be completely successful with achieving what is important to you in your life, right? And
absolutely.
so why did you, before we get to you brought to your knees, because I've had some pretty amazing and pretty horrible experiences with corporate. Um, what made you believe that this is the perfect life before you finally realized, yeah, not quite so much?
What I believed, it was beautiful sunshine. I was living in the Sunshine State in um, the United States, so that would be Florida. I was at the number one beach that was Siesta Key or Clearwater, uh, and it was beautiful. Like I could literally go drive there, enjoy five-star dining, really enjoy like the shopping and everything is just consumer, like consumerism. Now I'm looking back, and in the time, it was keeping up with the Joneses, of what was the clothes, the shoes, the appearance. Um, I thought, yes, this is success. This is what it is. I've reached my pinnacle.
Mhm.
And I was so happy because sometimes we get into I would say a cycle, and also a um, mindset from our parents, as in saying, like, even though I wasn't able to do my dream, this is my dream and I'm going to get that through you.
Yes.
That was another thing, major, when it came to living this out for the time being, is like I've always been very artistic, very with my hands, and in general of just designing. And my mother was the same way. We The family was brought up in poverty, very poor, didn't have much, and she was just like, I'm somehow going to get you through college, which she did. And when I moved 1,000 miles away from home, saying like I'm starting my career, she was more than giddy. Like, this is my success of what a child is. There's a lot of psychology in between there. Um, I was like, yeah, I did it. Look at me. Um, it worked for a while, and then really noticing how the old structure was when it comes to fitting into the machine. It was it was interesting to see that, and being uh, almost ostracized for having ideas and not clogging in, and saying like, well, what if this would work? What would that would work? And really uplifting the company. And it was just like, no, this is not your position. This is out of your scope. This is out of your position. Um, this is do what you're supposed to do. Get
Yes.
back to.
That's the last corporate job I had. I literally was told to shut up in meetings and stop showing people how smart you are.
Mm,
And it wasn't about that. It was about sharing ideas and sharing different perspectives, right? Um, and so I want to get to the cog that you mentioned, right?
yes.
So I wrote a book over a decade ago called Authentic Women Have It All. And it's about women showing up in business and becoming men versus bringing what business really needs, the feminine perspective, in order to have balance and grow and be creative, right? And in
Mhm,
doing that, they cheat the business of their potentiality, and yet business smothers them and puts them into that role. It's really, and my hypothesis was that corporations is an experiment. That structure is only now maybe 120 years old.
mhm.
It's
Yes.
only it's an experiment, and it's failing. So, it's failing miserably. And I said that over a decade ago, that it's failing because women aren't allowed to bring the gift that they have to the boardroom, right? So
Mhm,
as a result, people like you who are creative, innovative, go with the flow and have amazing ideas are stifled.
mhm.
So talk a little bit about what was going on corporately, and you mentioned domino effect. To me, a domino effect is if everything's going really terrible at work, but my personal life is doing fine, I can handle it. If everything's not going well with my personal life, but it's going well at work, I can handle it.
Mhm.
But when all of my surroundings are falling apart, that's it. I'm in chaos.
Yes.
So talk about so you were living the dream, your mother's dream,
Mm,
and
mhm.
for a while it was good, and then you started questioning what the heck. Did I
I
get
did.
myself into?
Yes. It was interesting to be in the generation and then also to of like you're not going to stick with one corporate job. I bounced from job to job to job. And now it's looked at as in saying, oh, you have a little bit more depth. You have um variety of your capabilities. But before it was looked down upon, saying like, well, what's wrong with you? You can't keep a job for being at it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and making sure that you get your pension and 401k. Um, and when it comes to it, I mean, if you're happy and you're passionate about the job, then yes, I agree that if you enjoy your work, of course there will be some hard days in between. We're human, we have that. Then okay. But that wasn't the case for me. I each time I upgraded my salary and what I was capable of and my expectations, and I grow the corporate ladder of maybe not really making a fiscal move and then also being lateral with it. And each time it was just like, okay, I I enjoy it and I'm a person that I see something, I need to fix it or know that how to make it better, not for the sense of own self-purpose, but in general of like the whole well-being of a company. And they didn't like that because they're like, we've always done it this way. And I'm like, well, how are you going to grow within um keeping up with the ages? And I've learned to pick my battles. I've learned just with experience. And it was at my last corporate job before um, everything went down in 2019,
Mhm.
beginning of 2020, um, that they was saying like, oh, well, you're doing remote work. And how things got bad from business and personal is I didn't like my relationship anymore, my long-term relationship. That fizzled out. And your mind goes away from the relationship before your physical does.
Oh,
And it was a definitely hardening because at that time, it was my second parent that passed away. And I had to do work and then also handle that within a like going to another state 1,000 miles away, plus handling that and remote work. Now, of course, remote work was ludicrous. It wasn't even thought about. And then now after, I mean, you have hybrid positions now and remote positions even more. Um, so the pinnacle point and the top of it that just kind of made the doink of everything else falling into place was at the back door of my childhood home. And I literally was on my knees and I was looking out the acreage that we've had, and I'm like, I'm done. Like I don't know. Like I don't like my relationship. I don't like my job. Um, and I called on a woman that I've had at the time was a spiritual mentor towards me. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And I was like, is there something wrong with me? And she was like, no. She says, you needed this. It's like your dad passing away in disguise, it was definitely a blessing. Like what he couldn't give you in the 3D physical realm, he's giving you a lot more in the astral quantum space. I'm like, okay.
and you're like, okay, this woman is crazy, right? And I'm sitting there going, yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, I've had uh revelations throughout me growing up when it comes to having experiences, sensing, seeing, hearing the presence of others that's usually wouldn't think that's here. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to keep this to myself until years later. And that phone call was a full circle moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And and sometimes we need permission to let
Mhm.
go and to follow our own dream and to follow our own path, especially when we were raised with a certain set of guidelines and a certain set of expectations. I know my expectations, me growing up, fell apart when I was 24. I was told you're not going to college and you're not going to, do much in business because you're just going to get married and have babies. So I
Mm.
got married, had a baby, found myself divorced and on welfare for 24. Holy shit. Well, that didn't work out. Right. Um,
Right.
and so, so there are different turning points in our lives where we have the opportunity to either swirl down, because you could have gone into a fetal position, right? And
Hmm.
say, this is the life that I was meant to live and it sucks, but I'm staying, right? This is the
Right.
relationship I picked, and there's something wrong with me that it's not working. So I'm going to try and fix it.
Mm.
Or you could pick yourself up and say, okay, it's time for me to move on to the next thing in my life. And that is
Yeah,
to find out who I am.
exactly.
Right. So your dad passed, and you found yourself with nothing working. So
Yeah.
so what did you do?
I continued the corporate until they actually quiet fired me before that terminology came into existence now, more so publicly. And in the meantime, I literally gave the house to the ex. I pretty much saying like, here you go, here's everything. I was like, you wanted the house, you wanted this lifestyle, and I was like, it's yours. I'm like, I'm walking away from it. Um, of course, the timing wasn't the greatest. Of course, when is it ever? Um, and I just focused on the estate whenever it came to it. There was a lot of ups and downs with it, getting it renovated as in a house and also having a claim against the estate within it. And that was interesting. um, um, being a single child, there was nobody else to actually help me. I was figuring the process out as I went through. And it was scary because a lot of people don't tell you that whenever somebody passes, even if it is your partner, your mother, your father, your close loved one, even your grandmother, um, that people will come out of the woodworks. And it's not the greatest.
It's pretty nasty. The nastiness of humans come through. Isn't it terrible?
It is. And it's a side of death, grief, sadness that's not talked about. Um, because yes, you do need to grieve and be able to. And also too, you're trying to find a safe space whenever you're in the process and you actually have to create that within yourself if you don't have it externally. And that the estate went on probably for about 2 years. It did, yeah. I gave me time to really check in with my mental health, figure out what is going on, and also too of my boundaries. What do I want? What is Samantha rather than all the titles? um, and looking at myself for being at the age that I'm at, that I have no children. I'm saying like, okay, is something wrong with you because you don't have any kids yet? You're not married. Um, so it's like a
There's a belief that's BS. Okay.
right. Um, you have to be like at this time you're getting married, you're having kids and everything of kind of like what you went through, and you're just kind of like, oh well, yeah, this didn't work out.
Yeah.
Um, it took a long time to, and yeah, it took a long time to really figure out that what I was seeking externally, I've already had it internally, as in my voice, my safety, my creativity, taking up space and being okay with it. And I mean, through all the trauma that has went through, yes, of the loved ones passing, but then also too of just childhood, teenage years that you really don't think about. And I had a few great friends, and I'm still with them today when it comes to going through all the process. And we really don't look at it when it comes to our external world. And we say like, okay, we see the clutter, we see the mess, um, we see the relationships most definitely, and how much they affect us internally. And also too, when it comes to the internal stuff, saying like, okay, are you going to tolerate this?
Well, that's where
And
your boundaries come in,
yeah,
right? One of the things that I've done with my clients is let's go through true value elicitations, not the values your dad and mom said you should have, and not
no,
the values corporate says you should have, or that church says your intrinsic, physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, your core values. It's a very
mhm,
painful process because you have to get past the bullshit to get to the core, right?
yeah,
But when we get there and prioritize them, force rank them, which is also another painful process, you end up with your top five. With your top five, you can create some pretty solid boundaries and say, does this business line up with my top five? No, well, I'm not working there. Does this relationship line up with my top five? Great. Yes, it does. So if that person leaves the toothpaste tube open, it's not one of my top five. I can deal with it, right?
mm,
It aggravates me, but it's not one of my top five,
right,
right? Right. So keeping those in mind and putting some sense to it, and then asking yourself what is what is coming up. And if it's from the past, which 99.999% of the time it is,
mm,
or the future expectations, right? But
right,
not in the now. If you're reacting to anything other than in the now, you need to let that go and focus on the now, right?
and
And that's the journey of finding self, right? And that's this you would have to have dealt with loving and forgiving mom and dad, loving and forgiving your past relationship, but most importantly, loving and forgiving yourself,
mm-hmm,
because the choices you made, you didn't know any better.
mm,
But now you have amazing information. So, what is it that in the past few years, what are some of the major shifts in your life that you've experienced because you've done the work of looking at yourself, right? And going through the process of number one, admitting that you have already always been open to
yes,
the universe, right? And
mm-hmm.
that it's not scary or something that needs to be kept a secret, but embraced and leaned into. And how has that helped you? A lot of
Ooh,
questions.
I love that.
Mhm.
Yes. I've learned when it comes to how you stay in the present, and we've always had, once again, the expectations. What is your year plan? What is your 5-year plan?
Who
And
knows? I mean, do they
most
ask me that? I'm like, whatever they tell me.
right, I'm like, "Oh, okay." And now I've very much leaned in to the feminine energy and also to saying like, okay, it is present. What needs to come through, I'll follow the breadcrumbs. And even if it's something that is sitting right here in front of me as in knowledge and information or a connection, and I don't have any use for it right now, I know it's going to come in value somewhere later. And I've seen that time and time again of, okay. And it starts to come into play like a tapestry. You're just like, okay, we're weaving it in. Um, that has been the most difficult thing through the whole process is really letting go because we understand letting go to a tip of the iceberg. You don't know the letting go from saying like, yes, you're doing the action. You have no expectation of the future.
No expectations. Um, through my coaching with many of my clients, that is, I focus on judgment and expectations. Because if you can release those, you're golden, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And many have a difficult concept with that because I'm talking, don't expect your relationship and your significant other to show up for you. You're placing an expectation on them. How heavy is that? Oh, what a weight you're putting on. Don't expect them to come in and hug you and love you. I mean, we were raised that this is what love is,
Right.
but that's not divine love. Divine love, there is no expectations. There just is love, right? And you do your thing and I do my thing and and the tapestry thing, we weave in and out,
Mhm.
right? And so changing our concept of reality is what's going on right now, right? And you changing your concept of reality of goals. I love that you've gone there, that you're like, I'm just following the breadcrumbs. I don't know where they're going. I
Yeah.
I don't know where they're going, right? I posted the other day, not the other day, maybe it was in February. In December, I was asked, what are you grateful for last year? What are you planning on next year? I'm like, I'm grateful to them, and I don't know.
Right.
Right. And in February, I now have 3 books coming out. I had never planned on writing. This middle of December, I would have said, fourth one in the crew events that I'm presenting at. None of it was planned. It's like, okay, guys, you're putting this opportunity in front of me. You're pushing me to go pick up the phone and okay, I'm doing it. Oh, look at what happened. Right. And that's the fear of not knowing where you're going is
Mhm.
where everybody lays. And here's the deal, because I've been in corporate, I've been 5-year plan, I've been right. And I
Mhm.
am a queen executor. I can make you give me the project, man, I'll get it done. I'll get it done better than anybody. I don't get it done. I manage the team to get it done. I know how to get a team in flow to get it
Yes.
done. Right. But to me, it's meaningless. It really is meaningless. It's just a game because who says it's important? And I would say that in corporate. Why is this so important? Who gives a crap tomorrow if it just doesn't get done? I mean, I'll do it,
Mhm.
but seriously, what is so important here, right? Um, what is so important is connecting yourself to you. That is what is important. And, your life is completely changed because you found that. I just love the people that I'm meeting. So what is it that you do now, Samantha? Tell us a little bit about, so you went through this transformation, you lost a lot materially, right? People
Hmm.
would say you're crazy to walk away from a home, you're crazy to walk away from a job, you're crazy to struggle, with fighting over, property and all that stuff because of your father's death, but it was your right. And what do you have to show for it? What do you have to show for it, Samantha? Where are you now?
Right now, I am mobile when it comes to my local area, doing sound baths and also with meditation. I'll be launching a membership at the middle of April, and it is really encompassing, yes, what I've learned in marketing, and also to bringing in the energetics behind it and centering the breath when it comes to meditation and breath work, and how sound can really alleviate as and pump you up and then also relax you in a therapeutic state of mind. So you have a little bit of marketing, and then also too you have a bit of rejuvenation in between.
So, how interesting. I love the creative way that you're going about this. And do understand, when it comes to music, to sound, to vibration, everything is energy, including us, and vibrations matter. And, the old experiment of plants and music should tell you, should demonstrate to you. If you have a plant that is not doing well, then play some great symphony right next to it. And within a week, that plant is going to start to perk up and grow. It's not amazing. It is science. And so what we considered in the past prior to today is woo-woo. That's not, that's all crap, is now through quantum physics being proven to be true,
Hmm.
is truth. Because if you can get yourself vibrationally in tune with the universe, everything is available to you. You grow like the plant. You're going to grow. You're going to manifest. You're going to find your dream. You're going to find your happy place. Right?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Right. So what's happening with relationships with you now?
Oh,
Surprise.
I know. So I'm glad that you circle back and talk about the relationship portion, and that's also huge because having a divine connection after having narcissistic trauma abuse, it is the most blissful and, I would say, eye-opening relationship, because what you thought was normal and comfortable isn't. And you actually find a person who is in the position of love itself without any conditions, without any underlying, um,
Judgment or expectation.
yes. And it's, hmm. It's been eye-opening to actually see yourself in the position of having somebody that you're deserving of it. When in the past you thought that you give out so much and you didn't return, like in return you received so little. So you thought everybody or at least in relationships, this is all I'm getting. And it's so simple that when you're not looking, something will actually come about. And more importantly, is the universe will put you with a person that is right for you when you've done enough healing for yourself.
Well, the universe is going to give you a person who's going to mirror back to you,
Yeah.
right? And so if you're in a narcissistic relationship, having been there, you have a feeling, a belief
Mm,
of low self-worth, that there's a role that I'm supposed to play. And this is all that I am lucky to have this. I'm lucky to have this, I guess is one way to look at it. When you realize that, hell no, you're not lucky at all, right?
yes.
Right. Um, and that you deserve absolutely anything that you desire, then you are in a position to step out. And it's not that easy to step out, no. I mean, in many of my interviews, people say, and then we left, and then I left. And no, there is, first of all, getting emotionally settled for that, then financially maybe settled for that, planning for how am I going to have this conversation? Am I going to have this conversation, or am I just going to walk out and never come home one day? Right. I mean, what are the logistics to disengaging from a relationship that is no longer working? And before you even get there, Samantha, you said, I am mentally gone before I'm physically gone, right?
Yeah.
You check out. For me, I know that I was at I have two marriages, and I will say that, in one, I was crying before I walked in the door. And I was crying as I was driving home. Then I was crying because work was ending. And I called my healthcare provider and said, I need a shrink, and I need a woman who understands. And I gave all of the things that I wanted that person to be able to cover. And what she told me, which is very interesting, is you're at a point in your life where you have stopped and you've looked back and has seen what you've been doing, and you're looking forward saying, do I want to continue this? And the answer is no. Right.
Right on point.
Right. Right. And you're at
Yeah.
the point and so it's a death. So you're crying, you're mourning the death of the past. You good, bad, or indifferent, you're mourning it. Um, and confused about, well, okay, I know that pain. I have no clue what's in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Is it going to be worse? Or is it good, what's it? We have no clue. And so that's the stuckedness that you feel about. So now what? Right. But every person that I have ever met who unstuck themselves, it is not worse. No matter how bad off they are financially, right? No matter where, what mattress you got to pull up on because you don't have a bed to sleep in yet. No matter what car you have to sleep in until you find a financial means to pull yourself together, it's better than where you were. Every
Agreed.
single one has said that. So, so you're out on your own now and you're living in Florida.
I actually moved back to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Astrologically, it was more suitable. Uh, a lot of Florida, my financials and fiscal years, I realized with astrocartography, it was not great. Like you would be on a roller coaster with finances. What did I go through for the past 7 years? It was a financial roller coaster. Same thing with being in corporate and having a job.
Mhm.
relationships, very emotional, volatile. And I was just like, oh, this is Florida. I'm like, okay, I have to move out.
Yeah.
So I did a reset a year ago, and I kept having the word reset, reset, and go to Pennsylvania, go to Maryland, that area
Yeah.
where I'm at.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So I was down in Indiana last week. So, and I drive through Pennsylvania every year when I go down to Indiana to visit family. I usually stop off in Pennsylvania. I have family there or friends there. So, um, so it's absolutely beautiful. So Samantha, um, talk a little bit more about what you do and how people can get in touch with you if they want to know more.
Yes. So I do one-on-one sessions, and that covers quantum healing, Reiki, along with sound baths. A lot of it right now has been mostly local based, and now it's transitioning into membership for online. So on my website, it is under construction at the time of this recording. So it will be up very soon. I'm so excited. And with the membership, as I said before, it would be a lot of the energetics behind relationships and the relationship with yourself, and with marketing help in between. So you can get a hold of me on Facebook and on Instagram. It's under Everly Secret.
Excellent. And that information will be in the show notes at the bottom. So thank you, Samantha. That was so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that journey with us. And everyone, this is Gail Craft from the Empowering Process podcast. If you enjoyed this, if this actually brought some awareness to your life, do me a favor and give us a thumbs up. If you have a question, absolutely let us know. Maybe we'll get back together and answer the question for you. If you know somebody who could maybe benefit from this conversation, please do share it out to them because we're here for you. And as always, I love having you, everybody. Thank you so much. This is Gail Craft from the Empowering Process podcast. Thank you, Samantha, again. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.